social responsibility. So to start off, we're going to look at what business ethics is. What is business ethics? Can somebody tell me just from your mind, what do you think business ethics is? Anybody? Just unmute yourself and talk. Unmute yourself and talk, please. What business ethics is? Hello, is anybody there? Can you hear me?
All right, so if you want to speak, please put up your hand and you'll be unmuted to speak. Please just put up your hand so we can identify you and unmute you to speak.
What business ethics is? Chinonso, thank you.
Emmanuel, please.
Chinonso,
Yes, Emmanuel, please unmute
Chinonye. Isom, please, let me call them if you don't terribly mind. Chinonso, please, what do you understand business ethics to be?
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Business ethics are just they're your business core values and principles that or your guidelines for running your business, basically.
Thank you. I like two things you said: core values and ethics, values for running your business. Yeah. Business ethics are guidelines and policies in running a business in a given environment. I'll accept, yes, guidelines, yes. I would accept guidelines as to how they want things done. So moving quickly, let's not waste too much time. Ethics, we'll start by looking at what ethics is. Ethics is a set of moral standards for judging whether something is right or wrong. You know, the first step in understanding business ethics is learning to recognize an ethical issue. An ethical issue is a situation where someone must choose between a set of actions that may be ethical or unethical. Is it right or wrong? By whose standard is it right or wrong? Do you understand? Who says it's right? Who says it's wrong? In business, let's explore these examples. Let's look at Martin Shkreli. The former CEO of Turin Pharmaceuticals increased the price of a life-saving drug by 5,000%, calling it a good business decision. Many consider this unethical. Why is it ethical? Why is it unethical? I want us to discuss this further down, so please keep this in mind. Hurricane Katrina survivors, stranded and hungry people took food and water from flooded stores without paying. This raises the question of whether their actions were ethical or unethical. Now, in the case of these Turin Pharmaceuticals, people need these drugs to stay alive. And because he knows it's a free market, we all know what a free market is. And because he knows that either they like it or not, if they want to stay alive, they have to buy it. He increased the price by 5,000. Is it right? Is it morally right or wrong? Is it unethical? Why is it unethical? And then let's consider Hurricane Katrina. Some of us were very aware of when this happened. Some of us are not. What happened then was that there was a Katrina. Rashid, you said there are principles and set of rules that allow some smooth running of business. I will allow for now until we go into the details of the class. Okay, many stranded. So, for instance, let's talk about people whose homes, livelihoods, and everything they know to be life has been washed away by a flood. They see a shop that has food and they go in and eat. Is it right or wrong? Is it ethical or unethical? And then finally, let's consider the example of a Texas manufacturer's dilemma. A business owner faces bankruptcy because he refuses to pay bribes, which are common in his market. If he pays, he can keep his business running and save jobs. Should he do it, or is it unethical? So let's look at this from two different angles. I'm sure he has thousands of people working for him. That means if that business goes down, thousands of households will go without income. And this will, the multiple or ripple effect is so much that it goes beyond the thousands that would be directly affected. The economy itself is indirectly impacted because those people will not be able to spend money. They will not have any income. They will not be earning income and all. And the business goes down. Why? Because of one person's ethical standard or moral principle. Or is it doing the right thing by saying, look, this is my principle. This is my ethical standard. I will not pay bribes. So if the business is going to go down, let it go down. So where do we strike a balance? Is it ethical or unethical? Right? These are the kind of things that we want to consider when we talk about ethics in business. So can ethics be taught? Some other people, this is about understanding whether you pick up ethics, whether you understand ethics, whether you are born with it. Can ethics be taught? Why or why not? What do you think? I want to hear from you in the class. Please just go on the chat box and talk to me if you believe ethics can be taught or ethics cannot be taught. I'll let you know that I won't move forward if I don't hear from you. At least 2-3 people must respond on this. Do you think we can teach ethics? I will go back one slide, so I don't want you to repeat my slide information for me. Do you think ethics can be taught? Thank you. Somebody is talking. Rashid, do you think ethics can be taught? Why? Why do you think ethics can be taught? Any other person while Rashid is thinking of an answer? Ogundele Oluwagbemiga Wasiu, you think ethics can be taught? Very good. So we have 2 people saying ethics, it can go both ways. Okay. Jonathan thinks it can go both ways. That's fantastic. Okay, let's consider some arguments and then we'll make our decisions afterwards. So the issue has been debated for many. I'll get back to you, the person that just sent in a chat now. The issue has been debated for many years. Approximately 2,500 years ago, the philosopher Socrates stated that ethics consists of knowing what we ought to do, and such knowledge can be taught. However, a recent editorial in the Wall Street Journal stated that ethics courses are useless because ethics cannot be taught. So you see, and you know, what makes up ethics? We are talking about morality, your guiding principles. Somebody talks about values, you know. Most current day psychologists would agree that you can't teach ethics, but you can teach people ethical behavior. Wow. So where do we start? Which one involves developing their abilities to critique and reason when faced with decision making? So ethics, what is good or bad is inherently, in my opinion, is inherently good or bad. You can't tell me what is bad is good, but then it all depends on your environment, you know? So I want to hear from you now. Do you think it can be taught in the, yes, someone, Sean says it can be taught. Oluwasegun, sorry, Oni Oluwasegun. Taufik, you said yes, it can be taught. I would like to know, I don't want to hear just yes or no. Give me, substantiate what you are saying. Why do you think it can be taught? Because what's right is right. Morality is just there. You shouldn't tell lies. You don't need to be taught you shouldn't tell lies. But hey, Anybody else? I'm waiting for you. Wasiu, please unmute yourself and speak. Ogundele Olugbemiga.
Hello, good morning,
Yes, how are
everybody.
you? Good morning.
Okay, I'm very fine, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Please, in my own opinion, ethics
Yeah,
can be taught because
okay.
the kind of ethics we are using in our environment where we live is different from the kind of ethics they are using in an organizations.
Hmm.
And if someone did not learn the ethics that they are using in an organization, we might not be able to differentiate that this is kind of ethics they are using in an organization, and so can.
Thank you. I agree with you. For an organization, for a business environment, what is considered right or wrong, which is going to be the ethics of the organization, can be taught. Thank you very much. Yes. Jonathan said that with social dynamics in our days, it can go both ways depending on the environment. Yes, to an extent, you're right. You can teach ethics depending on the environment. I'll give you an instance that I always cite. In the hospitality business, it's considered not unethical, but bad manners. When someone carries maybe a bellboy carries your bag to a hotel room for you and you don't tip, it's considered bad manners. I mean, it's the way to do things. So there it's ethical, it's good to do. However, if you go to, let's say, for people that work in some industries where you cannot take any form of gratification or kickback, say for the pension industry, and you do something for somebody and the person just says, thank you, even with lunch, we are out of work. So yes, I agree with you. Depending on the organization, ethics may be taught, or in the environment, because knowledge and action can be taught. Yes, thank you very much. So let's move forward quickly so that we don't waste too much time. So importance of business ethics, I believe you would have this 5 documents. I will just quickly run through them so that we don't waste too much time. There are 2 slides of this, but we'll just quickly, as fast as we can, go through them. Now, if you have a company that has good business ethics, let me give you an instance. Someone pays you money mistakenly. Somebody wants to pay you 1,000 and ends up paying you 10,000. And that money doesn't disappear in your organization. What happens? The customer comes back to you. That means you have shown honesty, integrity in the way you are carrying on your business. That's good business ethics. Do you understand? That means the customer has trust in you and it will come back. It reduces your business risks when you don't do shady deals, when you don't do things that would cause you to be questioned as an organization. And that's why you have regulatory bodies to monitor and ensure that people do things in the standards that, according to the standards that are prescribed by these regulatory bodies. And when you have infractions, that means when you do things that are against what the regulatory bodies tell you to do, you run the risk of being fined or shut down as an organization. So you reduce your business risk. Also, for people in the financial industry, let's talk about people that are looking for loans. You know that there are some certain things that you need to do before you approve someone for a facility. If you take shortcuts and you say, because, oh, he's my family member, and you just give the person the loan, over time you have a lot of unpaid loans, and you might go out of business. So your credit risk, you have exposed yourself to a lot of credit risk. Of course, it increases your social responsibility and your ethical investment keeps growing. Employees feel comfortable and safe, and employees want to stay in the business for a long time. Let me give you an example. For organizations, I want to believe a couple of us work and a couple of us might be in school, but a lot of us may be working. And if your organization says, you know, when you get into some organizations, especially in the private sector, and you are told, oh, once you are confirmed, we will double your salary, right? And then the confirmation comes and they tell you, oh, don't worry. Once the MD signs the paper and that goes into 1-2 years, you are confirmed for no doubling of salary. And eventually when your salary is increased, it's one story or the other. It's just like a stipend put on it. And it kind of erodes the confidence you have in the organization. And most of the time you realize that there's a high rate of attrition in such organizations is because there's lack of trust. Trade and community organization want you as a member. Most of the organization, all these associations you see one line there, they say you must be a fit and proper person. What they mean by fit and proper is that you are not someone that deceives people, you don't lie, you have good ethical standards and morals. So if you're not fit and proper, you can't join most of these trade communities and organizations. Investors want to help your business grow. That's why most investors will publish in their annual reports ethical things they do, corporate social responsibilities and all that, to show people that they are doing well ethically. Okay, communities want to host your business. Let's say, for instance, community where you go, the way you run your business is considerate of the people that are in the organization. I mean, in the business, in the environment where you run the business, you give back to the environment where you run your business. You do not manipulate and cheat. People, the communities would host your business. Other businesses would want to partner with you. Media would want to offer you special recognition. And that is why you see some organizations, you tell you they've been the best organization in terms of ABC for 4 years running. And once this happens, you notice that people will put it even as a rider on their in their organization. You see them, they emblazon this thing all over their organization. That means because there's the significance to living to running your business in an ethical way. Because it gives you credibility in the eyes of the public and in the eyes of your employees. And at the end of the day, what does it get to? You realize that, along with other good decision making, it helps profitability. It helps to protect the society, and it boosts loyalty and your morale of your employees. It also enhances the strength of the management, increasing team bond, attracts investors and customers, build and maintains reputation. So if you see what we've been talking about is about your reputation, how people perceive you is very important. The way you are perceived is how people would react to you. Enhance productivity, and clients and customers will believe in your company and want to support it. And in the long run, you're a better business for it. So what kind of benefits will it give you to have ethics in the workplace? Now, that's running an ethical business. Now, ethics in the workplace is a different ballgame entirely. Ethical business is how your business as an organization relates with the external world it's dealing with and with its employees. Now, when you're talking about ethics in the workplace, you're talking about within the employees and the relationship between the employee and the employer too. So how does this affect, what impact does it have? Attention to business ethics has substantially improved society. It helps to maintain a moral pulse in turbulent times, cultivate strong teamwork and productivity. Let me give you an example on this strong teamwork and productivity. I don't know, this is not I am sensing that this is not a class where you can quickly unmute yourself and talk. Otherwise, I would have asked for 1 or 2 comments on if you have ever been in a team when they have work teams and you are put maybe 2-3 of you to work on a project together, and you have somebody, you always have this very sly, I will call them slim shady kind of people. They kind of pass all the work to you. They are around without being around. They talk without saying anything. They carry biro and paper without doing any work. And at the end of the day, you realize just maybe 1 or 2 people in the whole team get to do the work. That's unethical, because he passes the responsibility and it doesn't make for good, strong teamwork. What else does he do? It drops productivity, because if you do that to me once, Next time they pair me with you, I will not work with you. You know, it also supports ethical behavior in a workplace, supports employee growth. Okay, it helps ensure that policies are legal. You do not give policy. Someone already talked in the chat about policies. Someone you don't set all standards that require people to lie. How many of you have been in or compromising positions when your boss will tell you, or somebody senior to you will tell you, I am not around, and you are forced to lie on the job? You know, a lot of times they tell you, oh, we are no longer doing this in the organization. And you know, it's a lie because it's happening. You know, so things like that make it, they are not good. So we shouldn't, it's not good to have such practices within the organization. It helps avoid criminal acts of omission and can lower fines. That means omission is when you know what you ought to do and you don't do. Manage values associated with quality management, strategic planning, and diversity management. Promote a strong public image. I'm not going into all this because I believe we understand quality management. That means you don't cut corners in the quality of what you are doing, either service or goods production. You promote a strong public image, legitimizes managerial action, strengthens. Bottom line is that it gives you a strong organization when you have a very good ethical organization. So it also helps to improve relationship between the individuals and groups, greater consistency in standards and quality of products, cultivates greater sensitivity to the impact of the enterprise's values and messages. And you know, and finally, the formal attention to ethics in the workplace is the right thing to do because it sets a tone for things to be done properly. So, I will move on now to looking at how do you recognize unethical business activities? Now, remember, I differentiated between ethical behavior and ethical activities as a business. Now, according to researchers from Brigham Young University, unethical business activities can be grouped into one of the following categories. Number one is taking things that are yours. I don't think you need anybody to tell you that you shouldn't take what doesn't belong to you. But you see, unfortunately, some people become insensitive to this. And then you see something, you just pick it up like, no, I beg, nobody's looking at me, nobody sees me. You know, we should desist from that. Okay? Lying, saying things you know aren't true to get an advantage. Misleading others, giving false impressions like promising products that don't perform as expected. Conflicts of interest, you are in a position where decision will be taken for you to gain something from, and you do not declare that interest. Now, sometimes there might be conflict of interest, but what the law requires is for you to declare. So when you are in a position where decisions will be made with regards to something that you might make some benefit or gain from, you are supposed to declare that, look, I have some certain interest in this. And then you may be excused from voting or something depending on the internal policies of the organization. But conflict of interest arises when you know that you have an interest and you keep quiet. So those are ways you can see withholding or sharing sensitive information. Let me give you an example of a pharmaceutical organization or a pharmaceutical company that produced a drug that has an extremely harmful side effect, and they refuse to share it with the people that are taking it. That's highly unethical. So you have sometime down, you will see something about people that speak up on behalf of the people that they are selling this to. For a lot of ladies amongst us that are using all these make me yellow beauty products, there is a lot of harm in those things. However, the law has now mandated them, some of them actually, to write on the body the harmful effect of some of the ingredients in those things. Before they tell you, before you would never find out all these things on it. So those are sensitive information that you must let people know. Okay? You are making someone buy a ticket for a flight, but you never told them that they will have a lay-by of 27 to 47 hours. That's wrong. and then taking an unfair advantage, exploiting people who may not fully understand the complex agreements. Most of us are at best just good at the areas that God has given us grace to know. And that's not the only place where we function in life. We function in different areas, different aspects of life. So imagine how you would feel when you function in somebody else's area of specialty and you realize you've been cheated. That's because they tell you you're paying the price for ignorance. No, that's unethical. So as a business, these are things you need to stay out of. Let me speak to some of us that are entrepreneurs. For you as an entrepreneur, you might want to say you are sharp. You might want to be sharp. I encourage you to not be sharp. Do things the right way. Everything good takes time to grow. Grow your business organically. Create strategies that will help you grow in leaps and bounds to have step increase, if that's what you want. But please, as much as possible, don't indulge in sharp practices that will make you have the similitude of growth, but will bring you back down in a very short time. Another thing is improper personal behavior. I will give you an instance of a makeup artist I once saw that picked up the bride, blue black. And it was as a result of the bride telling her that the makeup she did on her face was just too much, that it made her look very garish, and she didn't like it. So she told her that she's a professional and the makeup she did is perfect. And the bride said, no, I don't want this. And from there, it became a major altercation. Now I'm bringing it back home now for us because most of us may be entrepreneurs. We may not have large, full-blown organizations as businesses yet, but some of us may be running our small businesses. Such acts of unprofessionalism is completely unethical. Abusing power, misusing authority to mistreat or harm or subjugate others, it's completely unethical. Organizational abuse, permitting or engaging harmful practices within a company, especially in international operations. This is on a larger scale. I can't even think of some example right now, but when you engage in harmful practices where it doesn't even have to be international alone, even nationally, where you do things that are harmful to outsiders, even to your customers, to your stakeholders in an organization, breaking rules and tolerating unethical actions, failing to respond or correct unethical behavior. These are ways you can see or recognize unethical business activities. After identifying an ethical issue, what are you supposed to do? This decision to do or not to do is influenced by an individual's personal belief and the work environment. So far, do I have anybody that needs to ask a question? Are we together? Give me a thumbs up if you are with me and if you are following the class. Hello, be active. Are we together? Should I call somebody's name? Yes, I see a thumbs up, thank you. Are we together? Do you have any questions at this juncture? Rashid, I see you are following the class. That's good. So it's only Rashid that's Messi. Messi, okay, that's good. Anybody else? I believe there are only 2 people listening. Okay, Victor, I see you. I don't want to just talk for the fun of talking. I'm not here to kill time. I'm here to impact and learn from you. Okay, Wasiu, I see you are here. Very good. So Covenant, I see you are here. You're following me. You're following Onishegun. Thank you. All right, fantastic. So let's go back to the class. I'm comfortable now that I know that we are all still together. So After recognizing that a situation is unethical, the next question is, what do you do about it? The action that you take is partially based on your ethical philosophy and the environment that you work in or that you find yourself in. Okay, so now we are going to explore actions that you take when you realize a situation is unethical. Remember, justice is a question of what you perceive to be fair or what the environment you are in dictates to you that is fair. Now, justice is ensuring that rewards and burdens in society are distributed in a fair way. Let me give you an example. If I don't know the order in which we signed up for this class or we came on to this class for this morning for this particular lecture, but if the law says, or if there's a law that says that the first person to come, how many are we right now? I think we're about 16. So there's a $160,000 or $160 million to be given. The first person to be to sign up or to join the class gets 50%. Second person to gets 25%. Third gets 10%, and then subsequently until the end when the latecomers gets probably a slap or something, just for laughs. And the person that comes maybe number 14, because he probably knows me or he knows or she knows Edith or Isong or somebody, is given 25%. How would you feel? You will feel cheated. You will feel like, look, there's a law. There's some level of reward that has been allocated to some action, and it was not fairly and equitably distributed. So it happens like that. So it's justice is ensuring that rewards and burdens in societies are distributed in a fair way. So imagine if we said the person that comes last or signs in last into this class is getting a slap, and unfortunately the person that comes first gets slapped. How would you feel? You'll feel like, no, something wrong has been done because reward and burden were not equitably distributed. So expectations of fairness, we expect fairness in various, as mundane as that example is, you can equate it to various aspects of life. So we expect fairness in different aspects of life, such as fair grading in exams, fair wages. A lot of women are fighting now, equal work, equal pay, and we want to look at various perspectives on this. Modern democratic view says that fairness is often seen as equal work for, equal work for equal pay. Many people are based on the market value of the work they have done, even if this means different jobs and different wages. However, you realize that in some cases, some gender, I'm not going to mention gender now so that nobody quotes me, some gender may end up getting more for the same job that another gender is doing, which a lot of people are fighting against. So the new democratic view says equal pay for equal work. That's what is seen as justice and fairness. Alternate views, in contrast, some theories, those from communist thinkers, argue that fairness should be about distributing rewards and burdens based on individual needs and abilities. And I'll give you an example. I've been opportune to work in an environment where I do exactly the same thing as another man, exactly the same job description, exactly the same job level, exactly the same thing, but we are paid differently, or we were paid differently. And when the issue was raised, the ideology was, look, the man has responsibilities. He has to take care of the home, take care of his wife, and pay his bills, pay his children's bills, and all. You are just a woman. Your money is yours to enjoy your life. So you don't need as much money as the man needs. And that was the basis. Like I said, these are mundane examples of this theories or worldviews, but it's just for you to be able to appreciate the kind of thoughts that go into it. So overall, the concept of justice believe that it balances what people give and what they receive in a way that society deems fair. And by the way, I didn't think it was fair, but it was what it was. Moving on, we'll look at utilitarianism, that's seeking the best for the majority. One of the philosophies that may influence choices between right and wrong is utilitarianism, which focuses on the consequences of an action taken by a person or an organization, what impact it has on a vast majority of people. When an action affects a majority adversely, then it is deemed morally wrong. However, there are several challenges to this approach. Remember, we've talked about expectations of fairness, where we talk about modern democratic view and the alternate view. We are looking at utilitarianism now. Uncertainty. It's very hard to predict how exactly a decision will affect everyone involved. So these are some of the challenges that were posed to this view. Winners and losers. Every decision usually benefits some people while harming others. That's a given in life. You know, for instance, firing few employees to save full-time jobs for others creates clear winners and clear losers. For instance, if you have an organization that would sink except something is done in terms of cost cutting, anyone that loses his job sees the organization as evil. And everyone whose job is saved will say, oh my God, they did good. I mean, all those people they sacked anyway, they were no good in the first place. You know, that kind of thing. So it depends on where you fall. So there are always winners and losers. And then unacceptable costs. Sometimes negative effects, no matter how small overall, are so severe that many people find them unacceptable, like causing significant harm to animals for research. I would say unacceptable cost in terms of, let's look at an environment. There was a time where some toxic materials were being buried underground in some areas. While that was not for the whole, it wasn't the whole country that it was buried in. The few people that were living in that area were getting cancers and were getting sick. And that was completely unacceptable. In short, utilitarianism strives for best overall outcome. Majority of people have to be okay with it, and it faces practical difficulties in ethical dilemmas in determining what truly benefits the majority. So in the long run, it's subjective. Another one is following our obligations, and in following our obligations and duties, the philosophy that says that people should meet their obligations and duties when analyzing an ethical dilemma. Is called deontology. This means that when a person will follow his or her ethical obligation to another individual or society because he's upholding one's duty or what that, let me just break it down, what I consider to be ethically right or wrong. Let me give you an example. Okay, there's an example here. A technician for Hawking Pest Control has decided that it is his own ethical duty, and it's very practical, to always be on time to meeting with homeowners. So anytime he's going somewhere, he must be on time. Today he's running late. However, how is he supposed to drive? You are all Lagosians, I believe. If you are running late, how would you drive? Is the technician supposed to speed, breaking his duty to society to uphold the law? Or is he supposed to arrive at a client's home late, breaking his duty to be on time? Remember the other one we talked about earlier on, the man whose business would go aground if he didn't give bribe for a motor vehicle company. If he didn't give bribe, the company will go aground and a lot of people will lose their businesses. This is called deontology. He has his own personal ethics. Okay, he has personal ethical duty to himself and to other people around him. And this is what he stands by, is his own principle. The scenario of conflicting obligation does not lead us to a clear, ethically correct resolution, nor does it protect the welfare of others from the technician's decision. So I'm going to ask the class now, what's your take? because he's running late, he hates to be late. In fact, he's never late. In short, he gets there before the people he's going to meet. I'm expecting at least 3-4 responses for this. He gets there on time. This time around, he's running late. What should you do? Yes, I'm waiting. You can drop it on the chat box. Raise your hand if you want to talk, but I want to hear from at least 3 or 4 people. What's your take? Should he go slow and get there late against his own personal ethics? Or should he what? Break his duty to society, break speed limits to get there in time? Some people that have not talked at all. I see Elizabeth Ogbu. Jonathan has left, okay. Daniel, I haven't heard from you. Dear Kola Ayola, okay, she's left. I want to hear from people. Are we together? Can you hear me?
Please, if you want to speak,
class interesting.
unmute yourself.
I don't like the quiet class.
Yes, the class is really quiet. If you want to speak, please
Too
unmute
quiet.
yourself.
I don't like a
and
quiet
speak.
class. I like
Feel free to
interactive
unmute
classes.
yourself and speak.
Okay, Chinoye, yes, we can. You can hear me, so I need you to respond. Are you following me? Most of you said yes, you were following me. So I want to hear your own response now. Jim, you said your network is poor, you've just joined. So I'll just give you a brief recap for the benefit of Jim that just joined. If a person has, well, we're talking about deontology, which means that a person has his own ethical duty to himself and to the other people that he's dealing with. That means his principle. He does not like to take bribes. He does not like to get to a place late. So we are now looking at the example of a man that, let me just read it out so it makes it clear. Let me not say it from my head. We are looking at a technician from Okin Pest Control. He has decided that it is his own ethical duty to always be on time to meetings with homeowners. That means he's taking it that he owes them that responsibility. That's his own guiding principle. That's his value. Today he's running late. How is he supposed to drive? Is he supposed to speed to break his duty to society to uphold the law, meaning that he must not speed and break speed limits? Or is he supposed to arrive at a client's home late by staying within speed limits and breaking his duty to be on time? This is a scenario of conflicting obligations and does not lead us to a clear, ethically correct solution. Nor does it protect the welfare of others from the technician's decision. So my question is, what do you think?
Okay, so this Chinoy. So
okay,
from
Chinoy, I'm listening.
Yes, from my take from the scenario, 2 things are involved. He's already running late and there's nothing he can do about it. But prior to then, I think having a schedule, if it's something that is beyond his control, then it's fine. All he can do is just to call the homeowners to inform them that he'll be running late. Either way, he's not breaking the rules and then breaking laws as well. That's my take.
Absolutely. Thank you. I like your answer, which is a principle personally I like to live with. Arrive on time or call ahead. I think it's a decent way to live, not keep others waiting. Okay, Daniel says, I feel he should follow his principles to the end. and accept the consequences of being late. It's better than breaking societal laws. I agree with you, Daniel, but I think some people may disagree. Who disagrees with Daniel? I'm supposed to arrive late to not home, Wasil, to where he's going to meet with the person. So yeah, we are all in agreement that, well, I'm sure some of us may still have a different opinion, but by and large, do not break societal laws for your own duty or principle. Do what you can to mitigate the situation. And like Chinaya said, you can call ahead just to mitigate. So we're going to look at individual rights now. You know what will happen if you don't respond? I will just keep teaching and I will assume that you understand, which is not my style of teaching at all. I don't like to do that. I like to be sure that we are impacting. So I'm encouraging you again now to please respond, talk. If you have a question, raise your hand. If you have an opinion, feel free to share. That's how you learn. So individual rights. The term human rights implies that certain rights, inalienable rights, that's what they are called. You cannot alienate a person or remove that right from a person. And they're in Nigeria, they're constitutional rights. They're enshrined in the Constitution, Cap 4 of the Constitution. And these are your human rights. A right to life, freedom, pursuit of happiness. Well, not in Nigeria. You have freedom of movement, association, of speech, and all that. They are conveyed at birth and cannot be arbitrarily taken away from you. That's why they're called inalienable rights. Certain rights are guaranteed by government and its law, and these are considered your legal rights. Okay? So you have your human rights. It can be protected by law, but you now have some rights that are given to you by the government. So now remember, some time ago we were talking about, I can't even remember exactly what we talked about, but I talked about a pharmaceutical company, or you see your organization doing something wrong, which you see and you do not agree with, and you know that majority, going by the definitions we have given for justice and fairness now, majority of the people of the populace will be hurt by it. We talked about products that would harm and all that. So let's look at one important thing here, a lecture tidbit. A whistleblower. What's a whistleblower? A whistleblower is a person who reports illegal activities occurring within a firm to the press, government, or to other parties, or to regulatory bodies. Anybody that blows the whistle, I don't know how many of you were aware of this. There was a time, some couple of years, I think about 7 or 8 years ago, when a whistleblowing policy was enacted in Nigeria, and they told if you see anybody storing money illegally, you should blow the whistle. And then people started blowing whistles, and I remember one guy that blew a wrong whistle and was carried away by the police. Whistleblowing is when a person tells on an illegal or unethical activity. There are some famous whistleblowers of all time. I don't know how many of you are aware of WorldCom and Enroll cases. These are the people that this case is the foundation for corporate governance. 3 of the most famous whistleblowers, sorry, excuse me for a second. Sorry, excuse me. 3 of the most famous whistleblowers were recognized on the cover of Time magazine in 2002 as Persons of the Year. There were Sharon Watkins of Enroll, Cynthia Rowley of FBI, and Colleen Rowley of WorldCom. These women each reported fraud within their organizations, even though they knew they were risking their jobs, their reputations, even their lives. Jeffrey Wigand is another famous whistleblower who exposed corporate deceit in tobacco industry. A movie was later made about him entitled The Insider. So I'm not sure if I should ask you now because I suspect you may not talk. But I'm going to do something different because I cannot teach a class where you don't talk at all. So I'm going to be calling people. And I'm going to ask either Isong or Edith to please ensure that people that respond in class get some points, either 1 or 2 points up on their grading for joining, for participating in class, please. It's important that we participate. Opayemi or Reshile, what is your take? Do you know of any whistleblower or whistleblowing incidents recently, either in Nigeria or outside Nigeria? Rashid, Saba Esther, Taufik Kende Lawal. I'm going to be calling people and I expect you to answer, please. I think up to now it's just Chinoye and a few other people, Wasiu and a few handful of people that have been active in this class.
Okay, so Banket, once again, thank you very much. I'm one of your students. Right. So 2 things. Number one, someone like Jonathan, I think sometimes you will type into the chat room, and most IT people know about this guy called Edward Snowden. That did rat out that did rat out a couple of countries as it is. But what I just wanted to quickly say is this is a big deal. The challenge, though, so there is an ISO standard, and maybe somebody can put it up in the chat room. It's called ISO 37002. 37001 is for anti-bribery, which also sits directly within what it is that you're teaching today. But there's also another one that is called 37003. Mercy, maybe you can, and everybody on the call, you can pull out your phones and check what's that thing called, your WhatsApp AI, and see what tells you about those standards. ISO 37001, which is for anti-bribery. There is another one, 37002, which is for whistleblowing. And then there is even another one, which is 37003, which is for the control of fraud within organizations. So you can see those 3 standards, they pretty much follow. In fact, if I want to write them right, and maybe somebody should help me, if you look at the first one, it's 37340, which is corporate governance. The second one is 37001, which is for anti-bribery. The third one is 37002, which is for whistleblowing. And the last one is 37003, which is for fraud, governance, compliance, governance, sorry, I say that again, governance, anti-bribery, whistleblowing, and fraud. Those 4 standards. Now, the point I wanted to get to is that inside that 37002, they say that how do we protect whistleblowers? So if you look at what is happening in some of the banks, for example, right, they will say that, oh, people should tell us if somebody's doing something that is wrong. Like, they're encouraging whistleblowing. People even have a whistleblowing policy in their organization. Now, Banker, this is where the dilemma is, and maybe you share your thoughts and experience in that regard. Those people, somebody amongst the people that these people are whistleblowing to, that have access to the email or whatever it is, some of those people will then tell others. So you secretly do whistleblowing today, and then tomorrow everybody's looking at you funny in your department. How do we manage that? How can organizations ensure complete secrecy
anonymity
and confidentiality with regards to anonymity? Thank you very much. With regards to whistleblowing, does that mean that whistleblowing must go straight to the MD? Because if it goes to any other person, something we can't even trust that person will not tell others or something. How can we manage the confidentiality and then the protection, because we can culturally push you aside. Most people can stop talking to you. How can organizations indeed manage that secrecy, confidentiality relative to whistleblowing? Thank you very much, Manke.
Thank you very much, Dr. Olajide. I would even say one worse. How about if it's the MD you want to report? That's even puts a double dilemma on it. Okay, so the issue now is for people that need to blow whistles. We're going to get to that much later in the class. Okay, let me take other people's takes on this. Okay, so ISO 37001. Okay, thank you. So you will do well to look at all these standards. They will just give you some, widen your horizon on what you need to know. There's a lot of whistleblowing policy in Nigeria too, and most organizations have a whistleblowing policy. One, to provide protection for the whistleblower. Two, to even create a framework within which there's an avenue for you to blow a whistle when something is going wrong. So thank you very much for that take. So what action can would your company what action within your company would cause you to be a whistleblower? And do you think you could handle the pressure that would follow? Like he rightly said, whistleblowing is not something you should do with a bit of levity. It's a grave decision that has a lot of blowbacks that follow it. I'll give you an instance. This WorldCom, Enroll, root of corporate governance or foundation for corporate governance and everything that we are celebrating now, it wasn't without its difficulties and blowbacks at the time they did it. If you see here, there were threats on their families, threats on their livelihoods, threats on even their lives for blowing the whistle. And what do you do as an individual, and what should organizations do in terms of protecting? I'll give you an example of what I have been privy to. The first one I was privy to was to create a framework where the email, or it was an email that was created where you can drop an email on what the issue you want to report is. What the email does, or what was done, is to mask the email of whoever it is that is reporting, just to give some level of protection for the person that is blowing the whistle. Another issue is that there is a law. I mean, we all understand that it's one thing for you to have policies and laws and everything to protect whistleblowers, that they may not be able to do anything legally to you, but you may be ostracized from society for doing things like that. And there's really nothing much anybody can do about it. It's a personal decision that you have to take. And it always, like I said earlier on, it's got to do with your principles. Is it something you can look away from? Is it something you should look away from? What impact is it going to have on other people? Will you be able to live with it, knowing that give, for example, hundreds of thousands of people are going to probably get harmed from that singular course of action? I'll give you another example where a particular person, I guess I'm answering my own question. Thank you, Orlando, for even helping out. I was hoping more than one person would give some take on this. I'll give you another example now where somebody blew a whistle and lost his job as a result of this in Nigeria here. Because at the end of the day, what he tried to blow a whistle on was quickly and shadily corrected within the organization. All tracks of that happening, it was financial, was quickly corrected and removed from the office. We've all seen things like this before, even if not in real life, or you may have seen it in movies, and he ended up looking like a liar. But fortunately for him, which is something that if you want to blow a whistle, you must do, he kept records. For everything he wanted to report, he took his own personal records of it. And that was what he took to the industrial court and what gave him vindication. And he got his job back. And the person that was behind all this was of course he was visited with the full brunt of the law. So those are some of the ways which I would suggest that you manage whistleblowing. Definitely have your own records. Don't depend on the expectation that the records would always be there. They will not always be there. People cover their tracks. It's important to point out that there are laws to shield employees from retaliation for reporting illegal acts of employers. An employer can't lawfully retaliate in any way, such as discharging, demoting, suspending, or harassing the whistleblower. And to tell you the truth, nobody will outrightly do it. No organization will outrightly do this when you whistleblow on them. They will do it in a way that some benefits that would normally accrue to you will just find a way of not coming. So nobody will do it outrightly or aggressively, but tacitly they will do it and they will frustrate. So it's a decision that needs to be taken with a lot of thought. However, doing the right thing takes a lot of courage. Whistleblowers often experience negative consequences, like we've been saying. For example, the whistleblower may face alienation from colleagues, as well as scrutiny regarding their motive. Whistleblowers may also face a reputation of not being a trustworthy employee. Let me give you an example, far from even workplace, which for you younger people, for some younger people that may be in the class, for even older people that have children, these days, children are being shut from talking, and that's because they don't want to be called quote and unquote rats. And in the organization, when you are perceived to be a rat, when talk is going on, you enter, everybody keeps quiet. That can be a bit uncomfortable. So why do most employees keep quiet about breaches of ethics? Top 5 reasons is, I thought no action would be taken. And it's even worse when a whistleblower blows the whistle and absolutely nothing happens. And believe you me, nothing happens, yet it won't remove the impact of the fact that he blew the whistle. No actions will be taken to remedy the situation, but he will still have the blowback. So most of the people this is a survey that was taken by, I believe, Gallup panel in March 2020, and most people believe that refuse to blow whistles or refuse to talk when they see ethical issues or unethical issues within the organization said, I thought no action would be taken. So why would I need to expose myself, put myself in such uncomfortable circumstances when in the long run, no action will be taken? I was afraid of retaliation, which is very, very real. I previously reported a compliance or ethics issue, and it was not a good experience. Yeah, it's still in relation to being retaliated against, or it could even be from people looking at you like, what are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. I was not sure if it was a violation, and I addressed the offender directly and tried to resolve it. So these are some of the reasons why a lot of people keep quiet about breaches in ethics. So I want to challenge you in this class right now. What would be your response? What would you do? If you see an ethical issue, what's going to be your response? What's your take? Do you believe? I don't know why I want more than one person to talk. Thank you, Orlando, for bailing us out earlier. But I want more than Orlando to talk. My cursor keeps coming back to you, Opayemi. Esther, Shegun, you've talked earlier on. Opayemi, Oluwarotimi, somebody, just one or two people, or just drop a comment in the chat box. Would you go ahead now in light of what we have said? And what would you do if you need to? Well, I would have spoken out irrespective of what. Absolutely. But you need to brace yourself. Don't just do it thinking, well, whatever comes, comes. It's a good one for you to want to speak out irrespective of what may happen. But please be careful to document properly. Go through the proper channels, or else in some cases you end up looking like the offender. I thought no action would be taken. Oluwarotimi, okay. So if you think no action will be taken, you would not do anything. Thank you at least for contributing. So let's move on now. How organizations influence ethical conduct. Yeah, somebody else has something to say. Yeah, I'll also need to control my emotions to avoid putting myself in form of a trap, in any form of trap. Okay, thank you. Control your emotions. Yes. How many? Okay. I believe Orlando talked about Snowden. You know about WikiLeaks and all that. He cannot even go home. So the blowback may not be something that I will study my environment well if I am safe before I blow the whistle. So how about if you are not safe, but other people may die from it? What would you do? It's good for you to be wise and observe your environment. Well, I agree with you, Rashid, but I asked your opinion anyway. Not this is not no shooting down any opinion. So it's a wise decision though for you to study your environment. How would organizations influence ethical conduct? Now, people choose between right and wrong based on their personal code of ethics. Remember, we talked about personal code of ethics before when we were talking about the technician that was rushing for an appointment, and it would not. The dilemma was break the societal law, keep your own personal ethic, or break the society, or keep your own break your own personal ethic in favor of the societal law. They also influenced by ethical environments created by their employees. Let's consider the following headlines. Investment advisor Bernard Madoff sentenced to 150 years in prison for swindling clients out of more than 65 billion. How many people have heard of Madoff before? I'm really curious. How many people have heard of him before? Nobody? Wow.
Okay, Banke. So I think one of the assignments, and hopefully this will be a beautiful assignment, everybody, is to go and watch Madoff on Netflix. Everybody, they had to make a movie of a documentary, not just like a couple of what's that thing called? A couple of series within it, and I think they're even thinking about uh, continuing even after now. So I think I'll put the link for those of you that have some Netflix subscription or the other. Everybody go and watch it. I put the link and even the picture. Just type Madoff, that same person that Banker was talking about now. Just type it Madoff Netflix. It's a beautiful documentary. I haven't finished it. I think I watched about two or three, about two episodes. If I'm yeah, and it will blow your mind out, like, that if these things were even possible, and these are very smart global people. I mean, this is Wall Street and those kinds of things. You will find, well, if you're that kind of person, you will find it to be very interesting. And yeah, so everybody, maybe I'm sure that's a beautiful assignment. The assignment that gets you to go to watch a movie.
I'm going to watch a video.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, Orlando. But let me bring it home. Let me take it away from Madoff. How many of you know about what's this thing? I've forgotten it to B2. It's not B2B. This scheme in Nigeria that you put your money and in 3 months you get 15% or something. I'm sure a lot of people will know that one now. These Ponzi schemes are all over the place. Recently, it was Omega Pro. Somebody has told me MMM. Thank you. I knew you would know that one. MMM. Omega Pro, all sorts. They're everywhere. The same format, the same scheme, just a different name and different people cloaking them. And that's it, And then there's a former United Airlines CEO, Jeff Smisek, leaves the company after a federal investigation into whether United Airlines trying to influence officials at the Port Authority of New York. And then for Wells Fargo, which is a bank, Johnston fired after the company employees opened more than 2 million fake accounts to meet aggressive sales targets. These are real, actual stories. Somebody saying something too? Okay. You know, this for a lot of us that, or for some of us that are bankers or have worked in banks or have worked on commission, I'm sure, especially bankers, you can relate to this 2 million fake accounts, especially when you are given targets of 400 billion naira in a quarter or in half a year to bring to the bank. And people look for creative ways of meeting these targets. When targets are unreasonable, these actual stories illustrate poor business ethics that can create a very negative image for the company and can be expensive for the firm and the executives involved. This results in bankruptcy, jail term for the offenders. Organizations can be reduce the potential for this happening by educating their employees about ethical standards, leading through examples and through various informal and formal programs. So much more than I think behaving well, there needs to be, well, we'll still get to that much later, but for every organization that you walk into, private or public, you will one of the first things you will do when you are being onboarded into the organization is that you are given some documents. They will give you your HR policy and your code of conduct. Inside the HR policy, there's a big section called Employee Code of Conduct. That means there's a certain standard of behavior that is expected, not just for you, but for the organization. There are regulatory bodies that ensure that there are certain levels of responsibility of behavior standards that are expected even of organizations. And that's why, to make an example of this kind of people, a lot of them were severely punished. So let's move and look at how organizations will, So, excuse me. Okay, so how can organizations encourage ethical behaviors? Number one is at the leadership point. For those of us that are leaders and managers in our different organizations, there's a certain level standard of behavior that is expected of leaders. And that's because the tone for the organization is set at the leadership, by the leadership rather. Whatever it is you see that is permissible, what they say usually is that the culture is set at the top. So the culture you see that is exhibited in an organization is usually as a result of the attitude or behavior of the people that are in leadership. And that is why it is very critical, not when you get to the point of leadership, but from this stage while you are attaining the leadership position, to have very good ethical standards for yourself. I don't think anybody, we've seen situations of people where they get by ripping other people off and all, but at the end of the day, when these things come to light, you realize they are always short-lived and there's no long-term benefit in behaving in unacceptable ways. So leaders and managers must establish a pattern of behavior that determine what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. I'll give you an example. I'll take you to the banking sector now. I had the privilege of meeting one of the senior management staff. I can't even remember his name now, of Access Bank. I think maybe his name is Victor. For some of you that are familiar with the banking world, you would know who I'm talking about. He's really, really high placed. We sat down in a meeting where some discussions were being had on some merger and everything. And at the end of the meeting, he brought out his card and he came to me. A small fry by the hobby at that time, I'm talking about a couple of years back, and he said, "Do you have an account in this bank?" I said, "No." He said, "You need to open an account. Come to my office, go to any branch, show them my card, tell them I directed." I mean, that's to tell you that account opening and marketing is an aggressive and expected behavior for the organization, and it is patterned from the very top. So no matter who you are within the organization, you don't have any excuse or objection to say you can't go and market. Who are you? I'll give you the exact opposite of another bank I'm aware of, very familiar with, where the senior management, the MD and the ED, sit in the comfort of their offices and tell the staff to go and market. And on one or two occasions, they've come back to the office to say, "Look, we are going to the likes of Dangote, MTN, and all those big organizations. We need a big wig to go with us there." And they were so reluctant, and they tell them, you go first. If you are able to get anything, then we'll take it up from there. And that just tells you the kind of body language. And naturally, in that kind of organization, nothing is going to be done. I'll give you another example. There's a saying that one of the grandfathers of strategy that said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. When you see an organization that is not strategic in the way they approach things, it is always from the management. When you see a management that takes strategy very serious, when I talk about strategies, about having a plan for the organization and following through on the plan for the organization, it's always from the management. And when you see one that they just take it as, it's just one of those things, we need to tick the box that we've done it, it's always from the top. Moving on, offering ethics training programs. Most organizations at the point of onboarding and subsequently periodically, even as a nation, we have somebody help me out, this Act 2 in Nigeria. Does anybody know what Act 2 is? I can't remember currently what Act 2 is. Give me a second. Anti-corruption and something reason, then there are these trainings, series of them that you must compulsorily take as an organization in Nigeria. You and your staff must attend them at least twice in a year, minimally once, at the most twice in a year. So organizations must provide a formal training to develop the awareness of questionable business activities and practice appropriate responses. According to a recent survey by Ethics Resource Center, more than 80% of US companies provide some sort of ethics training for employees, which may include online activities, videos, and even some games. Oops, sorry. So this is an ethical dilemma, a training used by an organization for their training. I'm trying to consider if I should go through this with us. Okay, let's just quickly go through it. Bill Gannon was a middle manager of a large manufacturer of lighting fixtures in Newark, New Jersey. Bill had moved up the ladder rather quickly and seemed destined for upper management in a few years. That means Bill's boss, Dana Johnson, had been pressuring him about the semi-annual reviews concerning Robert Talbot, one of Bill's employees. Dana, it seemed, would not accept any negative comments on Robert's evaluation forms. Bill had found out that a previous manager who had given Robert a bad evaluation was no longer in the company. As Bill reviewed Robert's performance for the forthcoming evaluation period, he found many areas of subpar performance. Moreover, a major client had called recently complaining that Robert had filled a large order improperly and then had been rude to the client when she called to complain. So discussion questions. What ethical issues does the situation raise? In the interest of, if anybody wants to contribute, please just unmute or raise your hand so you can be unmuted, or just drop it. Number one is, Bill is on the fast track. He's moving to the top. He's somebody that is aggressive, is doing well, and you can see him at the top already. However, we are looking at Dana. Dana is somebody that is protecting somebody, another fellow called Robert. Robert happens to be an inept person at best, who is also very rude and doesn't do his job well. The snag here is, the ethical issue here is, Dana expects every evaluation report that is done for Robert to come in squeaky clean, high flying. The ethical issue raised here. Can anybody help out? I mean, it's obvious, it's a no-brainer, but clearly, he either has to go against ethics and rate him good in spite of, rate him high, in spite of him not being a model or a good employee or not performing. I mean, he has a lot of subpar performance. So should he rate him high in spite of that, or jeopardize his own career? What would you do as a person? And then what courses of action could Bill take? Should Bill confront Dana or Dana's boss? And what would you do in this situation? What are the ethical implications? Just one person, it would be nice to just, hey, feedback. I can tell you what I would do, but I would like to hear, yes, Daniel, please. Thank you.
Well, I won't say he coming out like that to help the matter either. He jeopardizes his career. He has lost more than.
Sorry, Daniel, I can't hear you very well.
I say that he jeopardizing his career can be very risky, or he can also not break it. All he has to do is change his way of presenting the situation.
Sorry, what he has to do is? Oh, unfortunately, I can't hear Daniel very well. I would have loved to take that input. Somebody else's hand is raised. Please go right ahead if you have your hand raised up. I don't want Mr. Orlando or Dr. Orlando to come to your rescue again.
No, no, Bankemi, I just have a question for you. So finish this one and then you can answer my question. You mentioned, what's the name of that training that you said that all governments...
Anti-corruption, hold on a second. There's anti-corruption training in Nigeria, is ACTU. I can't remember the full meaning now. I will find it during break and put it on the platform.
I think I have seen Anti-Corruption Academy of Nigeria.
There is one, and there's another one on code of. I'll just check inside my documents and put it on the platform.
So yeah,
but
so what I wanted, so what I want to ask you is this training, is it effective? Is there any measurable? Is there anything that allows us to measure if this training is actually leading? I think it's actually on that website. It's on that the website. I'll put the link here in the
link. Okay.
I think it's on the website. So my question to you once again is this effective, right? From ACAN, so they do mandatory offer for okay, I don't know, maybe this is it, maybe this is not. Anyway, I'll put one link.
Anti-money laundering, yes.
Okay. So yeah, my question once again is that training that you're referring to, do you think it's effective, at least as a country? Because this is primarily for government
officials,
yes. Yes,
it's both for government and private sector, actually.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's both for government and private sector.
But share your thoughts on effectiveness, especially in the public sector.
Okay, let me on the public sector. Now, the appearance of being good is very important. On the efficacy of this training, I have two things to say. Number one, the consciousness of knowing the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do goes a long way to even create some level of barriers for individuals. So that when you are doing something wrong, you are consciously doing it, and it's not a function of, oh, I didn't realize it was wrong. Evaluating the effectiveness of this training is another ballgame entirely. But I'll tell you one thing, since you raised it now, a large majority of public officers are not as bad as you would think. It's just a handful of them. And then I think the problem is about institutionalization of this quote unquote shady practices. Some things have been institutionalized that they don't even look bad anymore. So when you are talking about anti-money laundering, anti-corruption, and all those things in an organization, people see it as, yeah, it's a good to have. And then when you are relating with international organizations, you also put it on your profile that we do this, we have this and all. Whether it actually impacts the individuals and the organization as a whole, I would leave that, I'll leave that to an everyday Nigerian to hazard a guess on how efficient it is. But honestly, on an average, if you work in the public sector, you see that there are still some good eggs. But there are a lot of good eggs and a few bad eggs in the system that, and you know the way it is, if you break one bad egg in 10, 15 good eggs, everybody looks bad. So I hope that answers your question in a little way. Without
Absolutely. I mean, Banka, thank you very much. And I mean, it definitely gives a lot of comfort and joy that you can at least attest and validate to the fact that, yeah, there's still, I mean, that it's just a few people that really end up, you know, should I say, corrupting or
absolutely
destroying everything. It's not really an indication of the entire population, so to speak. So
exactly.
thank you.
I'll give you an example, for instance. I know of someone that this is a mixed crowd, so I'll be very careful the words I
what
use.
you say.
Some certain payments have not been made for close to 16 months now because the person refused to do it the normal Nigerian way. And that has become the standard and the body language in the whole organization, because it has been said that this will not. So usually when people are approaching that organization, they tell you they are going to only speak English there. Money is not coming out. And you realize that from there onwards, people begin to deal with that organization with that expectation and mindset. They know if you come here, you get your job done, nobody is going to ask you to cut unnecessary corners, and nobody is going to ask you to bring some ridiculous amount of money. Does it mean that there are no bad eggs at all in the organization? The answer is no. But from the top, the body language is, I am not going to compromise on certain standards. I would tell you what, because of this particular stance of this organization, there have been a lot of setbacks. I mean, and significant setbacks that may end up costing him his jobs, because positions now are about performance. But he has a personal philosophy of, I am not doing it the Nigerian way. We either change the system and make things work, or we just continue to roll in this mire. So we are moving close to, I wanted to get to a particular point before we go on break. So Appa, I think I noticed somebody trying to say something again. Okay, Wasiu, what ethical issues does the situation raise? Bill Gannon faces pressure from his boss while also being concerned about Robert's performance and his treatment of employees. Employee welfare. The situation raises questions about fairness and well-being of employees like Robert Talbot. Integrity and honesty. Bill must consider whether to disclose Robert's performance issues honestly or to protect it Out of loyalty, responsibility to stakeholders, Bill must balance the needs of the company with the rights of employees. I like this. Thank you very much, Wasu. I believe you're a PhD student. What courses of action could Bill take? Describe the ethics of each course. This is ethically justifiable, reports Robert's performance because as it maintains the transparency and accountability within the system. It may harm Robert's career. He's not doing well anyway. Speak to Robert first, but Bill could approach Robert to discuss the issues, allowing him a chance to improve. This respects Robert's dignity, but may delay necessary action. Ignore the situation, choosing not to act. Thank you very much. I appreciate this. And if I'm just to lend a voice to what he said, when it comes to employee performance management, the new performance management system that is even in the government sector that is used now seeks to eliminate subjectiveness. Absolutely. In the sense that your productivity based on your deliverables are what will be rated, not somebody's opinion of you. And that's something that I think needs to be addressed here. Their performance management system, why Dana would have that kind of sway to be able to get Bill out of the company in spite of the fact that he's a high flyer. And two, that means there's a lot of issues with the company when it comes to transparency. If you can get away with rating someone with a subpar performance that everybody can see, and there have been reports, you can get away with reporting them as good. And so, yeah, there are issues of, thank you very much for that, Wasil. I appreciate it. So what would Bill do? You've suggested that he speaks with him. You've suggested that he goes above Dana's head. And you also looked at various implications of each of the actions he could take. So, so not to waste too much time, let's move on. So the third one is establishing a formal code of ethics. So we said, remember the first one, we said leadership by example, offering training programs, and three, establishing a formal code of ethics. Most large organizations and thousands of smaller ones are created, printed, and distributed code of ethics. Remember, we mentioned this earlier, that one of the first things that you will get when you enter most organizations, and for most people that probably are small business owners and are contractors, when you go to register, because most of the companies now, you have to register with them in order to be able to transact or carry out any business with them. One of the first things they give you is their code of conduct. They are going to assess you. Do you have an anti-money laundering policy? Do you have this policy? Everybody wants to establish that to a very large extent. Unfortunately, Nigeria, we are viewed as a very beautiful country when it comes to corruption and our permissiveness of indiscipline. So most organizations tend to want to dissociate themselves from this notion. And so there's this code of ethics that employees must abide by. It provides employees with a knowledge of what their firms expect in terms of their responsibilities, behavior towards fellow employees, and customers and suppliers. In this code of ethics, you see some that are called misdemeanors. You see some that they will tell you that they will give you a warning and probably some sanction. Some warrant outright dismissal of some of the activities that they complete, they consider strongly against their philosophy as an organization. So some of these companies also put their code of ethics framed or hung in office walls, so to give everybody a clear view and an understanding. They say ignorance of the law is not an excuse, but then they go a step further to make just to ingrain it in their employees, to let them know these are our code of ethics and these are the ways we expect you to behave. D, making the right decision. In many situations, there are no simple right or wrong answers. Like we said, let me deviate a little bit from the technician's story, right? And we are looking at somebody that is probably, it may not exactly be a life or death situation, but it may be hanging, a lot of millions of dollars may be hanging in the balance. So he has to run and meet up with the banking hours before the bank closes. So he may need to speed. Now, is it right for him to speed? No. Should he lose that kind of money? I mean, would I say, oh no, we all know the usual answers. He should have left his house and given enough time for unforeseen circumstances to be able to prevent such rush and everything. But hey, sometimes there's no clear cut yes, no, right or wrong answers. There are some self-tests that may help you make the right ethical decision. First, the first thing is to do, are you within the legal limits of what you are doing, about the activity you're about to conduct? For instance, I'll give you a very sad example. And this has to do with somebody that banking relationships are also needed with that kind of money. I'm sorry, I'm not sure I follow your thoughts here. Okay, I'll give you a very sad example of somebody that had a kidney problem. He's been on the list and he's been waiting for a couple of years. It's a child, actually. And the parents have been waiting and they've waited and waited. And it looks like the who is who tends to get these kidneys when they are available for donation. And an average Nigerian doesn't even donate organs like that. So when you're looking for an organ, you're on your own. And because they needed to save the life of this child, they resorted to buying on the black market to save the life of the child. And the father said, look, whatever will come out of it, I'm ready to bear the responsibility. What he's doing is clearly outside the limit bounds of legality. That's the truth. But for him, he has weighed the choice and has made a decision that he will pay the consequences. He will live with it and make sure that his child lives. So you need to ask yourself, is it a legal course of action I'm about to do? And then you ask if it violates, if you're now working if you're looking at it from the context of an organization, does it violate your code of conduct? Sometimes you're asked to do something in an organization where it's a gray area in the law. It's not exactly illegal, and the company code of conduct may be a bit silent about it, or maybe if you're lucky, the code of conduct may have stipulated that you cannot do this, and that's a saving ground for you. But then, if those areas are gray, you need to ask yourself, personally, my own personal ethics, my philosophy, my policy, my principles, can I do this? So it would help you in making the right decision. Can I close my eyes to people dying? I do not have any obligation legally to report this, but can I live with not reporting it? So if your answer is yes, then your decision must still pass two more important tests. The feeling test. Ask yourself how you will feel when you've made a decision, and then what it will look like when it's splashed on the headlines. If you are able to answer all these questions, I believe by the time you go through all the steps, you'll be able to get to the point of deciding what a right or wrong decision is for you as an individual. So this is the first assignment. How are individual business ethics formed? I believe we've talked about it. We've talked about utilitarianism. We looked at how you recognize unethical activities and the role of top management in organizational ethics and what a code of conduct or code of ethics is. So this is your assignment. I believe Edith or somebody or Isang would put a link for you to drop it. I would take an early break now, if that's fine, at 11:54, and we'll reconvene at 12:24, if that's okay by everybody. Isang, Edith?
All right, ma'am. Yes, let's give them a whole let's resume by 12:30 rather.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much, ma'am. Everyone, please, you can go for your break and be back by 11:30. Sorry, 12:30.
I'd like to welcome everybody back to the afternoon session. I want to believe we're all back from our short break. I would like to confirm from either Edith or the other lady if we can go on. Do we wait for the others to join, or we just
Good
skip?
afternoon.
Good
Yes, ma,
afternoon.
let's go ahead. Let's go ahead.
Thank you very much. Okay, so
Yes.
welcome back, everybody. I mentioned earlier some 2 trainings that border on ethical standards of behavior. During the break, I did, as I promised, I dropped the link on the chat. So please, you could look them up. It's actually, like I said, anti-corruption and transparency unit under the ICPC for organizations, and the anti-money laundering and the counter-terrorism funding. So those are trainings that people usually are made to go through. The other one, like I said in the chat, is majorly for financial institutions. In the morning, we looked at various aspects of ethics as a company. How do you how do you recognize an ethical business? How is this propagated in an organization? And we cited several examples that have to do with looking at how you view or make your judgment on what is right, wrong, fair, and decision making on business ethics. This afternoon, we are going to go further and looking at managing a socially responsible business. So we are looking at the aspect of corporate social responsibility. Acting in an ethical manner is one of the 4 components of the pyramid of corporate social responsibility, which is the concern of businesses for the welfare of society as a whole. In the next few slides, oh, sorry, let me just project so everybody can see properly. Sorry. I need to ask, can you see my screen though, before I start to push on?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Thank you. So it consists of obligations beyond those required by law or union contracts. Definition makes 2 important points. CSR, when we say CSR, is corporate social responsibility, is voluntary. There's nobody that will hold you to it. However, there are some things that are voluntary, but the how do I say it now? The environment in which you operate expects it of you. Beneficial action required by law, such as cleaning up factories that are polluting air and water, is not voluntary. Second, the obligation of a corporate social responsibilities are broad. They extend beyond investors in the company to include workers, suppliers, consumers, communities, and the societies at large. So examples are Starbucks has donated more than 1 million meals to local community via its food share program and alliance with Feeding America, giving 100% of leftover food from their 7,000 US company-owned stores. So, quickly, what do we understand by corporate social responsibilities, and do we know examples of CSR in Nigeria? There's something in my head that I will just hold up till maybe somebody can give us an example. But there's one typical CSR that I see in Nigeria that I find very ridiculous. Does anybody want to give an example of corporate social responsibility? Remember, I said it's part of one of the ethical standards. Is one of the major responsibility, one of the key components of corporate social responsibility, as an acting in an ethical manner. And then it's not compulsory, but it's expected. You know, it's a good to do, not a must do. But on an average, every company does it. So 2 examples of CSR from Nigeria. I see there are only just 10 people in the class. Mercy, do you want to give it a shot? Or Wasiu, my able contributor, Jonathan, Elizabeth, Taufik. Okay, I'll give you the example that was in my head, which is not necessarily a good example. There's this example of, if you notice most of these roundabouts, you see some green grass planted. Yeah, somebody is trying to answer. I'll be happy to read what Shell. What about Shell? What do they do? Jonathan, what does Shell do? Yeah, I understand you're trying to write Shell. That's okay. What does Shell do? Their CSR. You see that some of them give, if I'm to help out, you see some scholarships being given by some of this organization, especially to people from the Niger Delta side, and not just there too. But the one that cracks me up that I was about to say earlier is where you see a roundabout and you see some green grass planted and they put decorations and all that, and they say that's the corporate social responsibility for a multi-billion organization. Just makes me shake my head. So thank you, Jonathan, for citing the instance of Shell. I believe you meant to say scholarships, Shell scholarships in Nigeria. Now, Peter Drucker, for those of us that are management people, you would know Peter Drucker. I mentioned one of his things that culture eats strategy for breakfast earlier on. He's a management expert, and he said we should look first at what an organization does to society, and then what it can do for society. That's how you understand corporate social responsibility. What is it doing for the society? Is it doing well, good or bad? And what is it can it do for? What is it doing to the society, and what can it do for the society? In essence, we are looking at the legality and responsibility of a company, which are the two dimensions you can look at it from. So, in looking at the legality and responsibility, you can have an illegal and irresponsible behavior. The idea of social responsibility is so widespread that it is hard to conceive of a company continually acting in an illegal and irresponsible way. Nevertheless, such actions do sometimes occur. It's very rare these days, especially for large organizations, because they have stakeholders, critical stakeholders, and they need investors that look at these things. Critical corporate social responsibility is so crucial that at the end of the year, most organizations report them in their annual reports, and they want to showcase this to would-be investors to show that it's a good organization to respond to invest in. It responds to the needs of the society in which it operates, and it does well in the society, acting ethically and diligently. So while it's far-fetched, it's still possible to find organizations that are doing illegal things and acting irresponsibly. However, there are some organizations that their actions may not be illegal, but somewhat you still find them irresponsible. Some legal but controversial advertising includes gun manufacturers, tobacco companies, gambling, and alcohol beverage companies. For instance, if you notice, most of them now, just to mitigate that aspect of irresponsibility. If you watch a tobacco advert, they will tell you tobacco smokers are liable to die young. This message is from the Federal Ministry of blah, 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 blah. Because we all know that smoking is hazardous to health. Alcohol consumption, you'll see a rider or a caveat that says not for people, not to be sold to persons under the age of 18, that kind of thing. Because drinking sometimes can be viewed as a bit of an irresponsibility, And then finally, you have legal and responsible behavior. Clear majority of businesses fall into this category of behavior that is both legal and responsible. But please, let's look at gambling companies. I don't think anybody will wake up and say, I wish that all my children would be gamblers. I'm not sure there's any such person. But we have these gambling companies, we have casinos, we have resorts, just solely dedicated to gambling. These are irresponsible, somewhat, depending on your own point of view, your view to life, but there's nothing illegal about them. So we now want to look at the pyramid of corporate social responsibility. Now, when you're considering a pyramid, the tip of the pyramid is usually considered very critical. But without the base, there can be a tip. Now, for the base of the pyramid of corporate social responsibility, you have economic responsibilities, because a corporation must be profitable to survive. If it's not profitable, it's no longer a going concern. So the economic responsibilities for it to remain as a going concern forms the pyramid of the responsibility of the pyramid or the CSR. The next level, you have the legal responsibility that for any organization, you must operate within the confines of the law. So it must be a going concern. It must still be responsible, economically viable. That's the economic responsibility. You have the legal responsibilities in the sense that on the second level, you must have legal considerations. You are operating within the bounds of the law, respecting people's data, respecting social norms and all the, respecting regulatory requirements and all. Now, when you now go to the third level, which is the ethical responsibilities, that's where it is resting on the foundation set by economic and social responsibility. Remember, economic is the base, followed by the legal, and then it turns its attention to ethical matters, social norms. What is acceptable? What is okay? Would I go and go to, quote and unquote, go to Zamfara State to establish a brewery? It's economically viable, it's within the legal bounds, but ethically, it may not be permissible for me to do that, So corporate social responsibility. And then finally, at the tip of the pyramid, you have the philanthropic responsibilities, which is what most people tend to look at when it comes to corporate social responsibilities. But for the purpose of this class, remember I said earlier on that the ethical responsibilities to the society in which an organization or a company operates is very critical. The philanthropic responsibilities now looks at giving a rise on the economic, legal, and the ethical to look at giving back into the society. Now, let's look at illegal and irresponsible behavior. How do you manage a social responsible business? In some countries, the idea of a corporate social responsibility is so widespread today that it is hard to conceive of a company continually acting in an irresponsible and illegal way. However, sometimes they occur, which can create financial ruin for organizations. I'll give you an example. If you remember, we talked about WorldCom, Enroll, and all those other companies. Yes, because there's a lot of regulation, laws, and everything around governance, around management of institutions or organizations or companies now. This is highly cut. But you still have instances of fraud. You still have instances of unethical behaviors, illegal, however, even irresponsible and illegal. And what this can do is expose the company to serious and dire consequences. Extreme financial hardships. For instance, I'll give you an example of a company where I think this was Enron, either Enron or WorldCom, where the pension fund was diverted. What happened is that all the employees were shortchanged. People that had worked for 30, 40 years had no pension to retire to. It becomes a problem for the employees and the general community in which they operate. Now, when this happens, sometimes top executives walk away. You see a situation when they tell you that some company is going through some situation, and there's this dichotomy in law, a legal person and a real person. The law is a real person. So you can actually afford to sue an organization without lifting they call it lifting the veil, without lifting the veil. It is when the situations are very critical and highly illegal that they tend to lift the veil of the organization to look at the people behind the actions of the organization. But most of the time, once you sue the organization, you get your money out of the organization, and that's the end of it. So, top executives tend to walk away with millions. Some, however, will pay a large fine and spend time in prison for their actions. This is commonplace, especially in the developed world. Federal, states, and local laws determine whether an activity is legal or not. For us in Nigeria, we know what activities are legal. I would take your attention back to the two things that I put on the chat box now: anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism funding. In some time past in Nigeria, you could send money anyhow, do anything. But after a while, to check this money laundering thing, there were some laws that were instituted, promulgated for it. And subsequently, there are some things you cannot do. There are some ways you cannot make money, and there are some ways you cannot spend money, all on the basis of this, just to curb this illegal and irresponsible behaviors. You also can have irresponsible but legal. We talked about this a little bit briefly earlier on. Their actions are within the confines of the law, but it's extremely illegal. Remember, we talked about gambling and all that. And there's an example here of a Minnesota-based company that makes My Pillow, who was fined some huge amount of money, $1 million, by California state, making unsubstantiated claims about the pillows that they make. They said the most comfortable pillow you will ever own. It will help you alleviate medical conditions such as snoring, fibromyalgia, migraines, and other disorders. Now, even on the face of it, reading this, you will know it can't be true. How can a pillow help you solve fibromyalgia? Or snoring, maybe. Migraines, I don't see it. Well, so I can agree that some pillows can give you migraine though. So when it comes to this blatant, and usually it's in advertisement, when you see these blatant claims by some organizations, and I think at some point in Nigeria and in other developing countries, we will catch on to this, because people come on and they give some very honestly unreasonable claims that this product can do this. It may be legal. It's called invitation to treat when you're looking at contract law. You can advertise your goods, but then is it responsible? The company CEOs countered that the claims were actually made by customers, and these testimonials were posted on the company's website, but they were later removed. Now, knowing that a lot of people may not have the understanding that, going to buy a pillow and sleeping on it like that and will take away your disease, may be irresponsible of them, but it doesn't mean that they did anything illegal or criminal. So they were fined. And in addition, the company faced several class action suits, and the Better Business Bureau has revoked My Pillow's accreditation. So you can see the blowback from an irresponsible act. Okay? Imagine a betting organization saying that you bet twice, your life will change, or if you bet with us, you'll be able to buy. All these claims are rife and all over. So that's just to tell you that selling of cigarettes is legal, but it's irresponsible. Absolutely. But some people will argue with this, but then they will put it there that you can't sell cigarettes to a certain category of people. But who wants to wake up and say it's good to smoke cigarettes and, just damage your own health? So in addition to fine, okay, I've gone through that. So we've just looked at the ethical aspects, legal, and the morality of a company's behavior, how to run a company. So your actions not only have to be legal, they also have to be responsible, to be able to say that you're running an ethically responsible company. But these responsibilities to who or to whom? We have various stakeholders. And when we talk about stakeholders, we mean individual or groups of people that the business has a responsibility to. It could be the employees, it could be the consumers, it could be the general public, it could be investors. It varies. It could even be the government. So there are various stakeholders. Depending on the kind of business you do, depending on the sector you are in, for a smallholder business, like an entrepreneur, your stakeholders could be your customers, the people you buy your products from, the people, the environment in which you run your business, and all that. So let me give an example of a smallholder business. Maybe if someone has a cottage industry, just operating or creating things from within their compound. Your neighbors are your stakeholders, because whatever it is you are doing must not create a nuisance to the people around you. So that means you cannot start to manufacture things that will give out fumes that will be harmful to other people's health. Or even if it's not harmful to their health, even just to not allow them, you can't be a nuisance. Noise pollution, smells, all that. So look at various stakeholders that you can be responsible to. For instance, you can have responsibility, and a business has responsibilities to employees. You must give them jobs. For instance, things are a little different these days, and we will get to that. We'll consider the aspect. But an organization that employs people must employ people on the basis of the fact that there are jobs for them to do. Let's not look at the government. Sometimes people go to government to work and there's no clear-cut job description. But I tell you what, things are changing now. Anybody you see working in any environment has clear-cut job description. It's a different ball game if they are doing it or not. Providing a safe, clean working environment, providing job security, and empowering employees to make decisions. Unfortunately, this providing job security in the private sector in Nigeria is not a responsibility that most employers take seriously, because a lot of Nigerians are not even aware of their rights to being given job security or to having their job secure by the employers. Just for what it's worth, and let me say it here, there's an industrial court in Nigeria where if you're unfairly treated, unfairly fired, or something happens, you have a right to go to the industrial court and take your supervisor or your organization to court, and you get a redress from there. Some people work in organizations, I'll give you an instance of this, where the organization refuses to pay their pension. You can go to the industrial court, they will find the organization, he will be made to pay your pension for the duration of the time that you paid, and even pay penalty on top of it, which is the interest you should have accrued on that pension. So we need to be aware of first, as employees, of our rights, and second, as business owners, as the rights that the employees have. Secondly, you have a responsibility to your customers. People that are buying, the reason you are in business is because of your customers. And satisfied customers lead to long-term relationship. Repeat customers is what you are looking at. And a long-term stream of revenue for the company and profit for the firm. Consumer fraud is a practice of deceiving customers by such a means as failing to honor warranties or other promises, or selling goods that are defective, or services that do not meet the claims advertised. I'll give you an example of some experience I had. I'm not going to mention the name of the organization here so that I don't malign them, but it's by the time I say their name, everybody would know what it is. I bought something from them, and it has a 5-year warranty. And something happened. I took it back to them, and they told me it's because the light in Nigeria is bad, so the warranty does not cover. You are selling goods in Nigeria, so you must have taken the fact that Nigerian light is bad into cognizance. So don't come to me and tell me that Nigerian light is bad. That's why your warranty will not cover. Of course, naturally, we took it up with their senior management, and yeah, they did some half-hearted, shoddy work in terms of honoring the warranty, but those are the kind of things you see. And as a result of that, I do not patronize them. And if I see anybody trying to patronize them, I let them know. I wrote it on social media and all that. And those are the kind of things that organizations want to guard against. Because once a consumer actually can sue you, I have a right to actually sue them on the basis of that. It's just that I didn't want to waste my time doing that. But once an organization, consumers have a bad impression of an organization, it tends to have a negative impact on the organization. Now, as a business too, you have a responsibility to your society. Business must be responsible by providing the community with jobs, goods, and services, good quality, high quality goods and services. You must pay your taxes to support schools, hospitals, and better roads. So, we're now going to look at environmental protection. That's part of your responsibility, and it's all about sustainability. You don't want to use up the resources in your environment because you're operating in that environment. And I'll take this in terms of organization of businesses that use up resources from their environment. The slow erosion of the world's resources. To slow the erosion of world's resources, many organizations are becoming more environmentally responsible. That's sustainability. Corporate philanthropy. Corporate philanthropy is a practice of charitable giving by corporations, including contributions of cash, equipment, products, and supporting volunteer efforts of company employees. Now, because I'll give you an example, immediately I say it will click in your head. Every business in Nigeria and all over the world, they benefit or they use this person's product. And as a result, they have a large foundation through which they reach a lot of countries, a lot of organizations in their CSR. And I'm talking about Microsoft. You've heard about the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, or right now the Bill Gates Foundation. Because right now I'm using Windows. Some people, of course, use the Apple, but a majority of people use Windows. And as a result of that, they are giving back to the society that they reap from in terms of their philanthropic efforts. So we have an exercise now. Give an example of social responsibility in your community that benefits you as an individual and your company and your community. I see there are not too many people back in class this afternoon. So, Jim, I believe that's your name, Jimosk. Jim, Emmanuel, Elizabeth, Undubisi, Richard, Taufik. It'll be good to hear from you. Anybody? Hey, Shayo. It'll be nice to hear from you. It'll be nice to hear your voice. Oluwarotimi. So that we don't keep the class stalling for long. Give an example of social responsibility in your community that benefits you as an individual, your company, and your community. I've talked about Bill and Melinda Gates as an example for us. Is there anybody? Feel free to drop it on the chat. If you have selling of cigarettes, okay. Wasil has been my able contributor, Jonathan, and I have some other people that contributed earlier on. Are we getting anybody to contribute? Okay, we'll move on in the interest of time. Okay, very good. Somebody's talking. Google, fantastic. That's a very, very good example. That's a very, very good example. You know, Google is so popular now that it has become a verb. They tell you to find, so you tell you to Google it. It's not even search. They tell you Google it. And you can see a lot of CSR in terms of enriching people's knowledge by Google. A lot of courses, a lot of giving back to technological development by Google. Thank you very much, Jim. Appreciate that. Okay, let's move on. Then companies also have, remember we've talked about companies' responsibilities to employees, their responsibilities to the societies in which they operate, their societies in which they operate, social media like Facebook. Thank you, Jairus. Thank you. very good in which they operate. They have that responsibility. Another one we can also think of is what? Responsibility to investors. There's something called social investing. Most people don't just invest, put their money. Transformation, absolutely. Thank you, Edith. This is absolutely true. I'm even surprised nobody is saying this. Thank you, Edith. You are so correct. Absolutely. That's a way of giving back to an environment where they are taking from. Some investments, yeah, now people are talking. Okay, good to see. Transformation. All right, Rashid. Thank you. Thank you. So, just to give a bit of a background on social responsibility, most people have now developed this. They are taking it as a business model. Do you understand? They don't just do it as one of the things that need to be done. It's a business model for them. It's a corporate accountability, corporate citizenship, and sustainability. Those are various models in which companies used to function or operate in this space now. Now, this is your second assignment. You are supposed to write the 4 components of social responsibility. Give examples or an example of legal but irresponsible behavior. How do businesses carry out their social responsibilities to consumers? What is corporate philanthropy? And is a company's only responsibility to its investors to make a profit? Why or why not? UOP, offering free tuition. Also, MTN offers free courses. Absolutely. So now we all understand these aspects of corporate social responsibility. So I'm sure this is the third assignment you are getting now. The first one we gave to you. Second one was Dr. Orlando telling you to go and watch a movie about Madoff on Netflix. And then this is the third assignment, I believe. Now let's look at various trends in corporate social responsibility. We are gradually rounding up towards the end of the class. It looks like we may not stay as long as we thought we would. So now, trends in ethics and social. The 3 trends related to ethics and social responsibility for the new millennium are changes in corporate philanthropy, a new social contract between employees and employers, and the growth of global ethics and social responsibility. But before we go into that, I want to bring our attention, in case we are not aware of it, to something called ESG. It's a form of sustainability model. Like I said, a lot of people are doing things in terms of they're approaching corporate social responsibility as a business model now, and ESG is one of such. It's a framework that measures how a business or organization is performing in areas of environmental, social, and governance. How are you performing in your environment? Remember, we said to and for. What are you doing to your environment and what you're doing for your environment? How you are performing in terms of your impact on your environment, knowing that you are getting the resources for your business from your environment, and then governance in terms of how well you are managing your resources, how you separate powers, how conflicts of interest, and other things that have to do with social managing a business responsibly. Now, we want to look at the 3 different aspects of new trends in the social responses, CSR. Corporate philanthropy. The first one is changes in corporate philanthropy. Corporate philanthropy has typically involved seeking out needy groups and then giving them money and company products, right? We just do for a group of people, cook rice, give them oil, give them this. But it's changed a lot recently to more strategic giving. In terms of the organization, giving towards goals and response or let me say it in this manner, giving towards things that are in alignment with their goals and vision as an organization. Let me give you an example. It will be odd, if you noticed when we talked about Google, we talked about Facebook, we talked about Microsoft and all that, most of them, you've never seen any one of them. Well, Bill Gates gives into health, true, but you won't see Google going into real estate developments, giving people houses to live in. No, it's very rare for you to see them go outside their objective as an organization, their corporate mission and goals. So their givings are targeted towards where their focus is as an organization. That's what the new trend, which is called strategic giving, is in social philanthropy. The second one is social contract between employee and employer. The new social contract is that there will never be a job security. There will never be job security. Remember earlier on we talked about job security as some of the responsibility of the employer to employee. Now it's a bit, let's say it has moved beyond that. There will never be job security. You will be employed as long as you add value. If you are continuously responsible for finding ways to add value, that means I will not carry any dead weight. No redundancies. So if you're not adding value to me, out you go. You understand? In return for you adding value and being responsive and responsible to me as an organization, you will have the right to demand interesting and important work. So nobody will just give you any kind of work to do. You will be able to say, oh, this is the kind of work I want to do. These are the kind of interesting projects I want to work on, because you are adding value. And this is very critical in private and multinational organizations. In government organizations, the trend has changed too. And gradually it's moving towards value addition. And in return, you have the rights, like I said, to demand for interesting, important work, freedom and resources to perform the job well. If you look at the model for Google, if you look at their office, your mind will be blown away. There's a sleeping area, there's a gaming area, there's all they're after is deliverables. How well are you able to deliver in the task that you have been given? Nobody is going to ask you, are you sleeping at work? Are you? No. In some Chinese firms, organization these days, they have siesta time during work, because they understand that these are human beings. You cannot work for 8 straight hours. Okay, you have 1 hour break, but people get tired. You understand? So there's been a shift in saying you have job security, saying you must add value. However, you can do it flexibly. You can do it with freedom. You can demand for the kind of work you have, and you can demand for the kind of pay that will reflect your contribution to the organization. And that is why you see some people, they get this pay, usually they get it in terms of bonuses, they get in terms of productivity allowances, and experience training and that they need, and the experience and training that they need to be employed in the organization. So you will not just be employed, you will be employed and trained for the job you are doing. So we looked at philanthropy, the trends in philanthropy, strategic giving, and the new social contract that says your employment must be value driven. You give me value, you get value. So no job security, it's value driven. And finally, global ethics and social responsibility. Now, in this instance of global ethics, I want to draw our attention to what global ethics means. It is a set of ethical standards and values that are shared by many cultures and religions. It's also known as the ethic of humanity. It addresses issues these days, raises issues around climate change, human rights, global trade. And the values that this ethics seek to address are related to life. It's about the golden rule: do unto others as you want others to do unto you. Fair treatment. And remember, we talked about fairness and justice. Global ethics includes responsibilities like global obligation and transboundary responsibilities. And what do you mean? Transboundary responsibility is defined in international law in the context of obligation protecting one's environment. Do you understand? So you cannot just go to somebody else's environment and mess it up. The example that is given here says when American businesses expand into global market, they must take their corporate codes of ethics and policies on social responsibility with them. That means the responsibilities they exhibit in America, they must go there and exhibit it in any country that they expand into. For instance, they can't dump waste anyhow. They must do that. They can't do that in other countries they expand to. They must pay their employees fairly and give them a good work environment. That must also be done in the other countries that they expand to. They must respect local practices and customs as well, so that there is harmony between the organization staff and the host population. Because naturally, you're not going to bring all your staff. For instance, in Nigeria, we have an expatriate quota. So if an American company comes to expand here, there's a limit for the number of staff that they can bring in. And once they bring them in, you must start to do knowledge transfer to our local resources here in Nigeria. So because you will be working side by side with the host organization, host population of the country that you are expanded to, it is expected that your social and ethical responsibilities must and necessarily be extended to the host population of the country. And this is your fourth assignment. What is strategic giving? They said you are asked to describe strategic giving. What roles do employees have in improving their job security? Remember, we just talked about value-driven employment. And how do multinational corporations demonstrate social responsibility in a foreign country, which is what we just talked about right now. I believe that brings us to the end of the class. Isong, Edith. Before I call Isong and Edith, I want to open the floor. Is there any other aspect of this class that you would want me to give you a recap on, to talk about? You have an observation, an opinion, a comment? The floor is open for you.
All right, before we take anything extra, are there questions? If you have questions from what we've learned so far, please unmute and ask, or if you prefer to use the chat room, feel free to put it in the chat room. Any questions?
So I take it everybody understands absolutely well and appreciates the place of ethics in running a fantastic and well-coordinated business. It's not alienable, they are not separable. Otherwise, the business runs into problem. And truth be told, there's no separation between a big corporation and a small corporation. For a small entrepreneur and to a big, large multinational, it is essential that ethics play a very critical role and a central role in the administration and running of the company. So I want to thank you very much for giving me your attention and your time. And have a nice day. And please make sure you do your assignments and submit them. So over to you, Isong and Edith. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Is someone speaking? All right. So thank you very much, Mrs. Banke. It's been very interesting, I must say, listening to your lectures this afternoon and this morning. I mean, personally, I have learned a lot, and I believe that everybody on the call has also learned a lot, and this will go a long way to guiding us in the delivery of our businesses, especially for entrepreneurs on the call and those aspiring great entrepreneurs, right? It is highly important to know how to make ethical decisions and manage a socially responsible business in this time and age. So thank you very much. Yes, I can see the applause in the chat room. Let's please put in or drop a round of applause in the chat room as we appreciate Mrs. Banke for being with us in class today and sharing this wealth of knowledge with us. Thank you very much, Madam. It's always a pleasure having you with us. Thank you very much. God bless you, and do have a wonderful weekend ahead.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here too. Thank you, everybody. Hope to see you or talk to you again some other time. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the assignments we've seen today would also be dropped in the WhatsApp community. So would be in alignment with the assignments and links, the email to which you would email your email address to which you would email your assignments has been shared in the chat room here. But Emmanuel, you can reshare that and would also repeat it so you'd know where to send your assignments to operate. What else? For those who are in class and have not paid your registration fee, please do ensure to do that and study your materials, read and rewatch the video recordings. So this class will be uploaded by God's grace on Monday to our YouTube channel, and the link will be shared in the WhatsApp community as well, so that you can click and watch. And if you've not subscribed to our YouTube channel, do so you can easily access these recordings, not just for this class, but for other programs that we have running. So I believe we all had a great time in class today. And Emmanuel, Mercy, people are asking for the attendance link. Please share it in the chat room. Okay. So please, let's have a wonderful hello, please, let's have a wonderful weekend ahead. Have a wonderful weekend ahead, everyone. Stay happy and stay blessed.